Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the weekly English Sadaqah program organized by Quantum Meditation Society, London. Today, we are talking about procrastination, especially if you are one of those people, like I used to be, for whom procrastination is a major problem. This Sadaqah is for you. Many of us procrastinate a little here and there, but for some of us, it becomes a major source of discontent, shame, a major issue in life, which really, really keeps us from um, living the life we want to live. Any procrastination, of course, is taking me away from fulfilling my potential. But for some of us, it is the thing that will make the difference in our lives. And those of us, if you can identify as one of those people, for us, it's not that we don't have goals. It's not that we are not aware that we're procrastinating. We may have tried many different techniques. We may have read up about time management, but still, we may have made lots of to-do lists and so on and so forth, but still, we can't seem to get out of this chronic issue of procrastination. So if this is the case for you, then this episode is for you. So traditionally, when we used to talk about procrastination, we used to often use it synonymously with laziness. We used to think it's a motivation problem, or we used to think it's an issue of time management or an issue of not really being very motivated in lives or having goals to pursue in life and so on and so forth. But researchers, when they began to research seriously on this issue, about this issue, when they began to really look deeply at what's going on with these people who report that procrastination is a major issue in their lives, the key finding they found was that procrastination is more of an emotional coping issue rather than a time management issue. It's not that these chronic procrastinators, incorrigible procrastinators, it is not that they don't know that they need to start early for something, but they, for some reason, can't. It's not that they're cavalier about it. It's not that they don't care about it. They were very aware that they should start early. They want to start early. When they don't start early enough, they beat themselves up. They were very aware of it. There is a lot of shame and guilt surrounding it, but they still, for some reason, cannot or do not start when they want to start. So what's going on? So procrastination, this word, it it means leaving something for tomorrow, but procrastination is also, it comes from the word, it's also derived from the Greek word called akrasia, okay, akrasia, which means doing something against our better judgment. So procrastinators are continuously failing to follow what their better judgment is telling them. Your better judgment is telling you to start something, do something now, but for some reason you can't. So what's going on? What's going on is that you have some emotion, a negative emotion related to the thing you are procrastinating about, that you are trying to escape by procrastinating. So you have two cycles going on. One is your rational mind telling you, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. And then for some reason, when it's the time to do it, when you are supposed to sit down at your desk and write that paper or start that revision, you seem not to be able to do it. When you're at the desk, then maybe you're going to YouTube, or you're checking social media, or maybe you need to write a report and you're just researching and but not doing the writing part. Whatever you're procrastinating about, and oftentimes people who procrastinate do not procrastinate about everything, they procrastinate about certain things. Whatever you're procrastinating about, you have a negative emotion that gets activated, that arises when you are about to do that work. And that in order to avoid that emotion, in order to avoid feeling that emotion, you procrastinate, you distract yourself with something else. For example, say someone has to write a report. You procrastinate about big writing assignments. That's a very, very common thing, like people procrastinate about, okay? So you procrastinate when you have like a long writing assignment. So maybe at that time, instead of writing, you're doing something that is on the surface nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with, right? You're doing research, maybe. You're writing down, you're making a list of or everything that you're going to put in your report, maybe. Or maybe you procrastinate about your studying, but at the time of studying, instead of studying or whatever it is that you're procrastinating about, or getting in touch with someone, maybe for you it's social things, you are maybe going into your kitchen and then labeling all the spices you have from A to Z. So you are actually procrastinating by doing something that requires quite a lot of focus and effort and all of that. So you're not necessarily being lazy in the sense that we think being lazy off. Like you're not necessarily just going and taking a nap, or you are not going and watching Netflix or whatever. You may actually be doing something that actually requires you to plan and focus and execute, but it's not the thing that your better judgment tells you that you need to do. So the thing that you need to do, the reason you're not doing it is because of you have some negative emotion surrounding it. So what could be this negative emotion? So let me talk about myself. I'm an expert in procrastination. I've done it a lot in my life. So what happened with me? I grew up in a very academic family. Both my parents taught at universities, physics and chemistry, so quite sophisticated subjects. Not that any subjects is not sophisticated. Um, in a very academic environment where all my friends, their parents were also academics. So there was a lot of emphasis that was put on academics. And of course, in Asian culture, people laugh about it. This is kind of an issue in general that you are expected to do very well in exams. So I grew up like that. On top of that, I was, said to be quite intelligent, or for some reason, I developed an identity of being an intelligent person. And I had a fixed mindset. I thought that, whatever you're born with, whatever intelligence you're born with, you are just born with that. And if you're not intelligent enough, then there's not much you can do about it. Like if you don't do well in an exam, it just shows that you don't have what it takes. You don't have what it takes in the most important area of life, because in that time, academics was everything. Academic result was the only measure of success, life success, to me and to many of us, or the most important measure of life success to me or to many of us. So so think about someone who has this mindset. When they're going to study, what will happen? Whenever they're going to study, they're thinking of the outcome. They're not thinking about the process. They're not thinking about the process of learning. They're not thinking whether they enjoy learning or not, but which I realized later, oh, I actually derive a lot of enjoyment for. I do have that academic curiosity. But when you have that mindset, what's happening is the work is becoming about the outcome and not the process. Whenever I'm beginning to study, I am starting to think about my results. Am I going to be able to be top in my class or not? And then the fear arises that what if I can't? What if I can't be the top? Then that means I don't have what it takes. Then that means I'm a failure in life. I'm one of those people who are not good students. For me, it was like that, which is a completely erroneous mindset and very harmful mindset. I'm one of those people. I don't want to be part of them. So what is this creating? This is creating a big fear, because when I am studying, I have to then encounter the reality of who I am. I have to encounter the real prospect that, oh, this might be difficult for me. I might not get it at first try. Also, I might be smart, or despite making, heaven forbid, despite making a lot of effort, I might still not do well. And so my so-and-so friend would do well, and I might be, so-and-so would still be first, and I'll still be fourth. And for me at that time, it was like the biggest calamity that could happen to someone. So that fear, whenever I'm going to study, that fear is arising, and I am then trying to avoid that fear, right? That's not a pleasant feeling. And human beings are psychologically designed to avoid unpleasantness, avoid pain, unpleasant emotions. And we're also psychologically, we've evolved to give primacy to the present moment, to our feeling in the present moment. So even though you're growing up and you're telling yourself all the time, like, I need to start studying, I need to start studying for my GCSEs today, but when you're sitting down, when it's study time, we're sitting down to study, that fear is coming up, and then because of how human beings are created, at that time, what becomes most important for you, unconsciously, you may not realize it consciously, is to somehow give yourself relief from that fear that you are feeling at that moment. So you are giving yourself that relief by going and doing something else, going and looking at YouTube, doing the research, doing anything that doesn't activate that fear. So I hope I made myself clear. So it can be any negative emotion. It's not that if you are procrastinating, the negative emotion in you that is arising is exactly the same as mine and for exactly the same reasons. But some negative emotion is arising. It might just be that you are just super stressed in life. You're doing this, doing that. Morning to night, you go on doing this, doing that, and you just don't have any time to process all the emotions, all the stress that are all the micro stresses that are arising during the day. So what's happening is when you're going to your office and now you've turned on the computer to write that long report, that's when you are coming face to face with all the stress in yourself. That's when, in order to write, you have to focus, you have to look, and then it's like all that negative emotions you subsided by doing all the little things or maybe watching Netflix is now trying to come up and it's making you super uncomfortable. And what do? Reflexively is try to avoid that unpleasant emotion. It can also be, as a child, the study material that you have been given is super boring for you. You might be intelligent, you might go fast, and you might need something more challenging, but maybe your school is just giving you lots and lots of drill, and so that boredom is also a negative emotion. And whenever you're going to study or maybe study a particular subject, maybe it's that emotion that's arising. Oh my God, I'll be trapped in this boring world for the next 1 hour. As a child, that's might have how it started, and then you're like, oh my God, I can't be bored for so long. I need to do something else, something more interesting. Or it might be that because you have ADHD, or because maybe like in the early years, maybe the foundations, your study foundations weren't built as strongly as they could have been. So you are now, whatever year you're in, you're now finding the study unusually difficult. Study is always supposed to stretch you, obviously, like you're learning something new after all. It's not about being in a comfort zone, but it's stretching you a little too much. And then every time you're going to study, you feel afraid, like, oh, I can't cope with it, I can't focus. If you have ADHD or something like that, or like, oh no, it's just too difficult. And every time you do it, it makes you feel bad about yourself. It makes you question yourself. So now you don't even think about the consciously. You just get a feeling at the pit of your stomach or in your chest, which is just a yucky feeling. And you just want to avoid that feeling. So that is what mostly happens to people who procrastinate. And then what happens is that because you have 2 cycles, right? One cycle is like you sit down to do the work you're supposed to do. You have an unpleasant emotion arise. Your body kicks in saying, no, we need to avoid this at any cost. And then you avoid it by procrastinating. But then after that, you feel really bad because then you blame yourself. Then you say, something's wrong with me. I am lazy. I have something, I'm not like other people. It generates even worse emotions. It gives you temporary relief, but then after that, it gives you, generates even worse emotions. That makes it even more difficult to do the work next time you're coming in, because now with on top of all the negative emotions you had, you have some more guilt and shame, right? So that's like one cycle is bad feeling, avoid, get temporary pleasure. Another circle is I should do this, I am not doing this, long-term shame. Two cycles going on in your life. And as you become more and more aware, your shame increases more and more, making the emotion you feel at the beginning of the task you want to do, you're procrastinating about, even worse and worse and worse. So the trick to avoiding procrastination is to be aware of your emotional state. So I have done this myself. This is like, I for many years this went on with me, and for like many people, I just blamed myself. I just told myself, oh, I just need more willpower. I just don't have the willpower that other people have, or I just don't I need to be more disciplined. I'm lazy, or I'm this or that. Those things did not work for me, and researchers say that it doesn't work for the people who are like this, who are like who had become procrastinators because of the strong emotions. What worked for me is when I started being very present to the emotion I was feeling when I started to do the work that I was procrastinating about. Like many people, if you see how I live my day, you wouldn't call me a lazy person. It's not like I'm spending my days like watching YouTube or Netflix or chatting or gossiping or sleeping. You will see me doing stuff, but I'm procrastinating about certain things. So when I when I started being present, when I started being aware of like how is it that I feel in my body when I am about to do the work that I'm procrastinating about, is when things started changing for me. So I meditate, and this feeling would not be active at other times. So I have to catch it when it's activated. So here's a technique that you can use to release these negative feelings that are activated when you're about to do what you are to do, or other negative emotions like anxiety and other things that disrupt your functioning. If you can catch yourself at the moment when it's activated, you can use this. Very simple, okay, but it works for me. You close your eyes, right? And you when the feeling is coming, you try to notice where in your body that feeling is. Where in your body is that feeling? So maybe for me, it was mostly like somewhere in my stomach, like a yucky feeling in my stomach, okay? So then I close my body and I treat that area, the muscles that are experiencing, almost like it's a separate person, they have almost like they're their own independent beings. And I am here and I'm talking to my belly, okay? I'm telling my belly, it is safe to release these emotions. It is safe to release this feeling of fear and dread and shame and low self-esteem that I have. And sometimes it's a mix of feelings. You won't be able to tell what is what, but you can just tell it is safe. You can try with me if you want. Close your eyes and then focus on that part of your body and say, it is safe to release this tension, or it is safe to release this fear. It is safe to release this shame. It is safe to release this feeling. You are not telling yourself, you are telling the part of your body that it is safe to release it, as if it's some separate independent entity, but you're talking to them directly. And see what happens. It's amazing. The human body is amazing. There's a lot going on that we don't realize, but you will see that part of your body, you can't force it, but you will see, well, how do you feel now? Is it there or is it gone? Try it a few times. So it really worked with me. I then could, like, I could see, like, oh, now I'm in a neutral state. Now I feel kind of neutral about what I'm about to do. And it may not work if you do it one time. You may have to repeat it many times, but this is something that people certainly can train themselves to do, and it certainly works. And it's a wonderful tool to manage any issue that's arising because of how you're managing your emotions. Because emotions get trapped in our body. A lot of the emotions you feel are emotions from 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So this is not something fresh. So it's just trapped there, or your body has gotten used to reacting a certain way to certain situations. And that might have been helpful then, but is dysfunctional for you now. So if that's the truth, if you do that, you will see that, oh, you can release, and you will see that you start feeling very different in your body. Okay, so that's number one strategy. I said I'd give you 3 strategies. The number one is be present to the emotion you feel when you are about to start the work that you procrastinate about. When you feel the emotion, then close your eyes and focus. Try to identify in which part of your body you're feeling it, and then talk directly to that part of your body and tell it that it is safe to release it. And you can add a little more. You can say, like, thank you. I know you have been doing this to protect me. Thank you for storing this information for so long. It is now safe to release it. It works. Okay. If you practice, you will see that it's working for you. Number 2. Okay, so this is a little more practical, like you won't need to meditate for this or sort of go inward for this, is if you can make yourself start, you usually go on for long. So what we often do is, like, we have this whole project in our head, like we are carrying the burden of finishing a whole long project in our head. But people who are productive get a lot done. They don't carry the burden of completing the whole thing every moment. The only thing they're concerned about at the present moment is the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. It's very interesting. Like, one of our colleagues in quantum, many of you, if you are involved with quantum, of course, Rabia. She's super successful. She actually topped her whole board, the whole Dhaka board, in her end of high school exams. It's called HSC in Bangladesh, and she topped her class in Dhaka University for both her bachelor's and master's degree, and then she's super successful in her work for quantum. So I just remember talking with her one day, because I was this person who when I start something, I feel the burden of, like, oh, how is everything going to be finished? And I was talking to her, she said, like, I don't think that way. It's like I don't have that in my head, and I only have what I'm doing then. And that struck me. And then later I learned that that's how productive people work. You can't, like, when you're working, it will be, one thing I can guarantee is it's not going to go the way you expected. Now that I've started actually being in the work, it's some things are going to be better than expected, easier than you expected. You're going to have unexpected ideas. Some things might be like like not what you, even worse than you expected, or something you thought would go smoothly might not. There, you might encounter a challenge, but it's not going to be how you expect. So just, I'm saying that because just to tell you that this emotions you have right now, based on what you think is going to happen, are mis are not right, because they're based on the wrong things. They're based on not the reality of what's going to happen, but what you think is going to happen. And what reality is never consistently like exactly like outcome is going to be what you believe, but the day to day, all the little things, if you let yourself be present, be open, will be there will be lots of unexpected things, and you will have to deal with them at the moment. So all you need to do in life is to deal with what is in front of you right now. What the next thing, the next thing. And that is something that is about learning to love the process and not think about the outcome. So if you're somebody, you procrastinate about certain things, commit to one thing, and that one thing is starting, and then maybe going on, then fix a time like just 5 minutes. I'll give you 10 minutes. Commit today, don't tell yourself that if you've been procrastinating, today I'm going to start my GCSE revisions, and from today I'm going to be perfect, and my revisions are going to be perfect and everything. No, just tell yourself, today I am going to start. I'm going to start this, and I'm going to go on for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, like commit to 5 minutes. That will happen. The negative emotion that will, if you are somebody who is procrastinating, and now you have this lack of self-respect regarding the work that you need to do, or lack of belief in your own competence, then what will happen is that what happens for you probably is you feel very overwhelmed about the task, or the things that about the things you need to do. You feel very overwhelmed, like like you think like, I'm not up to this, I can't do this. So what will happen is, if you commit to 5 minutes, is that feeling of overwhelm will be much, much, much less. And since what we learned today is like procrastination is really about managing those negative emotions that are arising, this is a very good tool. Give yourself just 5 minutes, and every time what happens, or in 80% of the cases, what happens is that if you start, you go on. If you start, you go on. But don't force yourself to go on. If you have hit that 5 minutes, you are free. Give yourself a reward. Okay. So what that's happening is like, because what happens is, oftentimes we think we need to get in the right state of mind to do something. And while that's true to some extent, our first strategy was tackling that. But oftentimes what happens is that action doesn't follow emotion, but emotion follows action. What happened, what I realized when I started working, is that, oh, I actually like the process of working. I just don't like the fear I feel, or the yucky feeling I have before I begin to work. So if you can make yourself just start, give yourself, by telling yourself that I just need 5 minutes, is to, then you will see that just the fact that you are now in action is changing. That is changing your emotions. Okay. Point number 3, very important for a lot of people. In order to do something, they do things much better when they're accountable to someone. When they're accountable to someone, when they have to show somebody something. So things that, if you procrastinate about exercise, some people, I won't name who, are always planning to exercise, but it's never happening. You're doing you always want to do your yoga, but it just never happens. For some reason, that's the one thing that never happens. Everything else is happening. If it's something like that, if you have an opportunity to do it with someone else, do it. You might feel scared, like, oh, or a little bit of shame, like, oh, what if, they go, I don't, and this and that. But typically, most people, they would be fine. They would go if they're doing it with another person, or if they join. Why do you think like these yoga classes and Pilates classes and this and that are so popular? Because certainly you can do it yourself. You can certainly do it because that makes you accountable. You have paid money, maybe. You makes you accountable. And most people, when they're accountable to someone or something, they usually do it. You can, and even just the company of like if you're doing yoga, but you see why do you think like, okay, so people doing it in front of you, you doing with them is so popular, like maybe on screen even. Again, it's like that's not exactly accountability, but that's also doing it with someone else. So if you can say you want to study, but you just be vulnerable and tell your mom today that mom, Ammu, ma, today I have decided that I'm going to, at this time, after I finish my homework, I'm going to start my revision. I'm going to revise this subject. I have just made a goal of 20 minutes today. If depending on where you're starting from, can you check on me? Like, can you ask me how I did, or did I procrastinate? Just do something like that, and you will see that most people, when they're sharing it with someone, being accountable with someone, if you have the opportunity, do it. It could be like just talking to a colleague and say like, can you please check on because so get yourself an accountability partner is what I'm saying. So 3. And then the last thing I would say is forgive yourself. If you have been procrastinating yourself a lot, you have a lot of shame and guilt about it. Forgive yourself, because that guilt and shame is just making that primary emotion that's driving you to procrastinate worse in the first place. So please show some self-compassion, forgive yourself, and start again. Today, in the Bangla Sadakayon, we learned, listened to this story that I personally found so inspiring. There was this British author, okay, so um, he was in some other kind of work in himself. In him was the desire to write, and he probably also believed that, oh, he had the competence to write, but he never got around to writing a book until in his 40s. He was diagnosed with a serious illness, and the doctor said he would survive for another year. So now here he is, like he is diagnosed with this disease and he thinks he has a year to live. He's married, he has a family. He sees that he doesn't have enough savings to make sure that his wife and family will be okay after he dies. So then he thought that, okay, I always wanted to write, and now time is running out. Maybe if in this 1 year I can write one book, then my wife might get the royalty from that book, and that would give her some extra income when I'm gone. So he had this extra motivation that's pushing him towards the direction of actually writing. So then he started writing. In that 1 year, he wrote 7 books. Not only that, at the end of the year, he realized that he was cured. His disease was gone. So that is not really that surprising, because in quantum, we say, our guru says, life is the sum of time and work. Like life is how the only way time runs, right? The only way you can preserve time is doing something in it, because the time wouldn't stay, but what you did will stay, right? So when we know that within us we have a lot to give, but we're not giving it, inside of us something dies, and that can cause all these diseases and stuff. But this man, when he started doing what he was meant to do, which was writing, his diseases appeared. He got cured, and then he wrote 70 books after that. So, so if you identify as an incorrigible procrastinator right now, know that it is something that can be cured. There's no such thing as incorrigible procrastinator, and we are getting much better at understanding why people procrastinate, why well-meaning, otherwise hardworking people procrastinate, and how it can be dealt with, how it can be overcome. Believe that yes, you can overcome it, and think about that feeling that you have when you have the equivalent of all your 70 books out there in the world, and how you have preserved this time you have on earth by work, how you have caught the time through working in it, and now that time is staying in that work that you produced. Okay, so that is our talk for today. Hope you found it useful. We are going to do the overcoming negativity meditation. And what you can do is, like, if procrastination is really an issue for you, you go and write down all the negative beliefs that give rise to that negative feeling when you procrastinate. Like, it's too late for me, I'm not good at this, other people are so much better, I am lazy, something's wrong with me, I am not good at it, I will never do this. Be very honest and raw with yourself and see what you believe deep down, write them out, and then erase them, cross them out, and release some of those negative beliefs, so that the emotion that comes up next time is less intense. And then you can actually do the strategy I shared with you a little earlier at the moment. So as always, give me a second. I'll play the meditation and let me know in the chat if there is a problem. Last week there was actually a problem. Inshallah, this week there won't. Okay, so that was our Sadaqayon for today. I hope that it gave you some food for thought and some real insights that can help make some real changes in your life. I hope to see you again next week with another topic that is again very relevant to our lives. Until then, take care of yourself, enjoy your week, and always keep in touch with that part of yourself that is full of love, full of joy, and full of eternal optimism. I'll see you next week. Thank you.